Hi, I'm Matthew Marinus, and today I'm joined by my wife, Gemma Marinus, and today I will be asking Gemma some questions. She has an inspiring story to tell, and having been married to Gemma for the last 6 years, I've witnessed...
remember how long, babe, hey?
Had to read it. I have witnessed firsthand the inspired creation of Stageworx and Born to Perform. And I guess I'm the best person to know what to ask in order for her to give us the greater understanding of her passion, purpose, and philosophies about performing arts and arts education. So thank you for coming down from the bedroom to the garage studio during lockdown.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, it was hard, eh? Hard trek.
Looking back on your childhood, are there standout moments that you can recognize your innate instinctual love for music?
One time that my mum always talks about that I remember quite vividly was going into a shopping centre and Come a Chameleon by Boy George was playing on the radio. That's how many years ago it was. So it was playing on the radio and I had a complete meltdown. I must have only been about five or six, my son's age at the time. And I had a complete meltdown because I wasn't going to allow my mum to leave the store until I'd finished singing it at the top of my voice. And I remember that. And I remember every single time there was a certain song that came on the radio or whatever it was, I made the whole house stop and listen until I was done and finished and everyone had to watch me and listen to me.
And it's amazing because those aren't really decisions when you're so young.
No.
You just have to look back and realize that that was just a part of you, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing that I say to a lot of our Stageworx parents is you can see the ones when they come in for meetings and interviews to come into the school that it's just innately built in them. The creativity and music and the passion for music and singing and dancing, and it's just there. And that kind of passion you can't really teach. That's something, whatever your religious beliefs are, that's something that is given to you from above as part of your path. Whether you make use of it or not in the future, it's innate within you. And I find that for kids and teenagers as well, that it is inbuilt like that. They really use music as a way of healing, so even if they don't end up necessarily on stage performing and being a performer, it will always be a major part of their life. It could be that they listen to a song to make them feel a certain way. It could be that listening to music or a song or watching a performance inspires something in their life. It's the thing that is their motivator in a way. And that was the case with me as well.
Let's talk about how arts education actually changes kids' lives, whether they go into a career or not.
Yeah. Again, also had people on the 101 course and in our school, many that perhaps don't want a career, but they see the benefit of that. Well, I personally think arts education should be as stable for every single human being because, first of all, it teaches you an innate understanding for each other. So when a child walks into a performing arts environment, it doesn't every other preconceived idea of who you are and where you're from falls to the side. There is no hierarchy. It doesn't matter whether you are from a very wealthy background or whether you are from a very impoverished background. It doesn't matter whether you are Jewish, whether you are Catholic, whether you are Muslim. It doesn't matter whether you are black or whether you are white. When everyone walks into that class together, everyone is there for the same reason, which is because they have a passion for music, singing and dancing. And the big thing that I see is that playing field right there is the place where kids and young people can find the most understanding of each other, because they are now being surrounded by kids from different walks of life, from kids from different backgrounds, from kids that have had different experiences from them, from kids that are from broken homes, from kids that are not from broken homes, and they make different social groups outside of the social group that they've been placed in. So that's the first thing, human development. It forces kids and forces children and young people to mix with people that they usually wouldn't. And then they start, therefore, to then create an understanding of someone.
Just call my name and I'll be there. And oh,
it teaches self-love. Yeah, the biggest thing in arts is, well, in my establishment, maybe not in all establishments, but in my establishment, I actually encourage our students not to conform, to find out who they are and what they want. And if they want to walk into a class with a loud t-shirt on and that's how they're expressing, then we allow that. We let them do that, because that's them on their journey, figuring out who they are. Have your own voice. None of our students sound the same when they sing. Because what is your voice? What are you bringing? Yeah. So that individuality, it allows young people to...
It allows them, I suppose, to ask the questions of themselves.
Yes.
Everyone's walking around going, who actually am I? And that's a good question to ask yourself.
Yeah. And if there are good teachers and good leaders in the establishment, they will encourage truth within oneself. Right. Because the best performers are the ones that are comfortable with their truth of who they are, regardless of what that is. When they're comfortable with who they are and they have an essence of, I'm confident with who I am and I know who I am, everything starts to come together. So that process is encouraged. Second of all, it teaches them critical analysis. It teaches them how to look at someone and not immediately go, oh, they're better than me. And comparison, which is the devil of comparing yourself to someone. They live in a world where they are constantly comparing on Instagram. I'm not as pretty as this one, or this one's got more followers, or this one, they're living in a world of comparison. And they're taught in the arts, again, in a good arts establishment, that comparison can be a good thing if you lead with it the right way. So if someone is doing really well at something, or is sung that song so beautifully, instead of going, oh, I'm not as good as that person, I'm never going to be as good as that person, why do I bother? You sit and you go, why is that person so good? What is she doing that I'm not? Or what can I do differently? How can I improve? And you can use it as a way of inspiration. And again, as a general tool of growth, that is essential in life, because no matter what area of work you are in, comparing yourself is always going to be something that we do. So learning that skill set of critical analysis, of being forced to sit in a class where you all give feedback on each other. You're forced to go, I like that, but I didn't like that. And why didn't I like that? And the other person that's receiving that feedback needs to be able to receive it. Yeah. So critical analysis. The other thing is confidence building. Yeah. Of being able to, if you're an introvert and your natural personality type is that you are an introvert, being able to stand up and talk in front of people. Just that. That for some people and for some children is so hard. That we're talking about the kids that when they have to read their English project in school, that will lose sleep for 2 days over it because they don't want to stand up in front of their class and talk. Yeah. The arts will give them the means to be able to achieve that and to be able to do that and to be able to perform on their own and to be able to, and again, it's again on the teacher, because I mean, I have nearly on a weekly basis, I have kids in the class that go, especially my little ones, I don't want to sing on my own today, Gemma. And then you turn them around, you say, sing it to me. No one's listening, just sing it to me. Oh, that was wonderful. Great. You know what? Let's call your friend over. Let's turn around, let's sing it with your friend. By the end of the class, they're singing it on their own. And they walk away with a massive smile on their face going, oh, you know what? I can do my English project tomorrow because I've just sung on my own. And for them, that might be, they possibly never are going to be a performer. They are never going to go into performing in any way, shape or form. But that pinnacle moment in that performing arts class was a thing that has given them the confidence that one day when they are in a business room, they are able to stand up and give a presentation for that one moment. So yes, I mean, I'm a big advocate for that. I feel like the arts as a teaching mechanism is extremely underrated in this country, extremely underrated. And I think teachers of the arts within schools are extremely underrated and unappreciated for what they do.
For the development that they
for
allow
the development,
the students to go through.
For what they bring to those kids' lives. I don't think unless you're in that building and you're in that scenario and you're in that class, you could never quite understand what's going on there.
Yeah, because it's easy to just think of it as singing and dancing.
Yeah. And easy to just think of it as the round of applause at the end, which I go back to the ego thing. Easy to think of it of, well, if we're not standing up and getting a round of applause or we're not being told we're fabulous, then it's pointless. What's the point? Because you're not thinking about everything else that it's bringing to your kid's life. So even if they're not getting the accolades and the stage shows and the TV slots and whatever it may be, what your child is getting in that class could be essential to their development that you're not seeing. Yeah, there's two certainties if you were going into performing arts or music. One is uncertainty and the other one's rejection. That is going to happen to every single performer. Now, rejection is the biggest one to deal with. That one's the hardest. And if you are not faced with rejection early on, and I've seen it over and over again, and the first taste of rejection comes when you're stepping foot into the industry, because you've been the big fish in the small pond at your local studio and been told that you're absolutely amazing for years and years and years, and then you step into an audition environment and you suddenly realize you're not the best one in the room anymore. And you get told you're not the best one in the room anymore. That is when things can go wrong. And I think parents can really help with that by always, it's a way of being encouraging, but at the same time telling your children some home truths too. We
don't, as parents, we don't want our kids to go through horrible things.
No, we don't. We don't. No, we don't want them to experience that. We want to protect them from the rejection.
You want to protect them from that.
Yes. So say for instance they don't get into their school play, and that was the one thing that they really wanted for this year, and they'd worked really hard at going for the school play, and they don't get it. There's a number of different reactions that parents have. One of them, there's something wrong with the teachers, there's something wrong with the school, and I'm immediately going to get on the phone to tell them that their decision is wrong. Okay, so let's analyse, one, how that helps your child, and the reason why the parent has done that. So generally it comes from a place of, I don't want my child to be hurt. How can they not see the talent that I see in my child? Because every parent sees their child's talent and what they have. So it comes from a place of you protecting your child. But what does that kind of reaction do for your child? If you get on the phone to the teacher and say, how can you not put them in? Do you know who I am? I'm going to do this. I'm going to make sure that the principal knows that you've made a bad decision. And it happens, guys. It happens in schools all the time. First of all, you're teaching your child that if they make a noise and they make life difficult for the teacher and they're rude and they're obnoxious, they're going to get what they want. That's what you're teaching them. And the hard truth...
sometimes it works.
And sometimes in the school environment it works.
Right, so they get what they want.
They get what they want because the teachers don't have time for it.
Yeah.
They don't have time for the drama. They are working all hours God sends to make this play happen, so they just put them in. Yeah, because they don't want the hassle.
But what is the long-term effect for that kid?
Long-term effect for that kid is they think that if they complain and whine and moan and go on enough, they will get what they want eventually. And the problem is in the performing arts industry, it does not work like that.
When you get into the professional scene, it doesn't work like that. You cannot contact the producer and go, tell me what I did wrong and why I didn't get into that show. Yeah, and the likelihood is if you act that way and you continually act that way, they are never going to cast you and never want to work with you. And they don't care if your father is the CEO of one of the major banks in South Africa. They don't care if you drive around in a Mercedes-Benz and can fund half their show. It's not about that. It comes down to talent, dedication, and whether you did what was necessary when you walked into that audition room for them to cast you. And I run my school in a very similar manner to that. And I do try to tell the parents and advise the parents on
what is okay and what is not okay. And sometimes it works well and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, sometimes they don't like to be told that, listen, you come into me with that attitude of, why didn't my child get that particular solo? Why didn't they? I need an explanation. They need to re-audition. You don't see my child. I explain to them the reasons why they didn't, and sometimes it's just down to casting.
So is your philosophy to prepare people, to teach people in a way that's going to prepare them for the professional world? And what would be an alternative solution to parents and kids dealing with these things?
So, yes, it's not just preparing them for a professional world in performing, but it's preparing them for life in general. Yeah, failure is going to come in any walk, in any aspect of work that you go into. You are going to be rejected at some point. Yeah, you're not going to get the job. You're not going to get the interview. And the way to deal with that is your child needs to understand why it didn't work out this time, rather than blaming everyone else, rather than going, oh, well, it's because that the blonde girl in the 9:30 class is the one that's Gemma's favourite. That's why she got it. You are not teaching your children to look at themselves and look at, what could I have done better? Where are the holes? Or was this literally just down to casting? And a good teacher you can go to and ask those questions to.
Okay.
I'm not saying don't ask. It's just the way that you approach it. If you book a meeting with your teacher and you come in and you say, listen, she was really disappointed that, you know, she didn't get a lead line in this particular thing, or she didn't get a lead role in the school play. What can she do better next time? That is something that a true teacher and someone that loves teaching, they love those questions. Because you want to figure it out. What can we do better? What can we work at? What went wrong? Yeah, and that way you are turning the negative of the failure into a positive of inspiring the student of, okay, so this is what we need to do. We're going to get motivated. We're going to work on our mix register, or we're going to work on this because this is what we need to do. And that inspires them then to work harder.
Is it also inspiring for a teacher to have those kinds of conversations?
So inspiring. I mean, I've got a lot of students that even are around the ages of 12 and 13, very, very young, that come to me directly with their concerns, which I love, because it's not the parent speaking on their behalf. They are coming and talking to me about what is making them upset, what are they loving, where are they going now, and it's so inspiring as a teacher to be in that scenario, because as a teacher, that's what you want to do. You live to walk into that class every day, and you are not wanting to make people feel bad. No teacher does. No teacher wants to walk into a class and have someone walking out not feeling great about what they're doing. You know, and I know I'm hard with it sometimes, and I know, and a lot of my parents will be laughing now because they know that they get the WhatsApps from me going, you know, please do not send me another message asking why your child didn't get cast in Born to Perform. If you want to book a meeting with me and talk it through, then book a meeting. But I'm not responding to WhatsApp messages, you know, because it's trying to teach them for the benefit of their kids.
Yeah, but I suppose that's the quest though as well, to try to convince the parents that within our establishment, that's
the foundation of it.
It's a long-term goal that we're trying to go for, and you might not understand why Gemma's being hard at the moment. Yeah, but we're painting a bigger picture here.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, I think the reason why I lay so much importance on it is because I know that people that are easy to work with, people that are easy to work with and nice and I generally have a longer career than those that are not. It's not always true. I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't people that did very well just based off talent, you know, that didn't have maybe the human aspect all the time. But you've got a much better chance if you're nice, especially in South Africa, where it's a lot more cutthroat and where everyone knows everyone. You know, all the producers know each other. So your reputation is really all you have.
Like I said, you were a performer, then you switched over to being a producer in Born to Perform and obviously putting on Stageworx shows, etc. So you now, on the other side, you're having to, obviously you're dealing with kids. People always think, oh yeah, it's only based on talent that the producer wants to cast you in the show. It's only based on talent that you're going to get that role. From your perspective, what are the type of people that you want to have in your cast? What type of people flourish and make your vision come to life in terms of what you're putting together?
Yeah, I want to be around positive people and positive parents. Especially, let's take it from a born to perform scenario. I would rather cast someone that I know is easy to work with, turns up to rehearsals on time, takes responsibility, practices notes, just basically does what they need to do without causing a drama or a fuss, and also makes the environment for everyone else good, that is inspiring, that works with other people well, that is likable, that is all of those things. I would cast someone like that was maybe not as gifted as person B. So person B is knocking this number out of the ballpark, is extremely gifted at what they're doing. But I've had issues in the past with them not turning up to rehearsals on time, complaining and being quite negative, making other kids feel bad about themselves. I will absolutely cast person A over person B in a heartbeat.
And have you done that before?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, I have, and I think that's important for parents to know as well.
And leading on to that question though, what is it? How important is it that you have a good relationship with the guardian or parent of the kid at your school?
So important, because what happens at home, I mean, even down to think when things are going wrong at home, you know, when parents are splitting up, or it affects the child when they're in class, and especially with performing arts, because a lot of the work that we do is really, we get them to dig deep emotionally to work their pieces. So for me to have a good relationship with the parents, to understand what is going on in the home environment, and we're doing really well, or we're not doing really well, or they're struggling at school, there's bullying going on at school, all of that is going to filter into their safety place. And I say Stageworx is like a safety place for them. They come to Stageworx, all of our students always say they are there because it feels like home. It's their outlet, it's their thing where they can be themselves and not get judged. And so when things are going wrong, I immediately see that something's going wrong from what happens in class and the feedback that I get from other teachers. And when I've got a good relationship with the parents, we can discuss that, and we can also help to guide them back where they need to be together.
Let's talk about how some young kids battle with seeing their peers succeed at a certain age group. Their friends are getting solos, right? They're not getting solos. And that upsets them, obviously. And that's a real thing. They go home, they cry, they deal with that heartache. But how do you navigate that space? And what is your advice for those for those kids and for the parents?
Yeah, it's hard. And it comes back to the rejection feeling. It comes back to that, about the feeling of rejection and comparison and all of those things. I've been doing this longer, and my friend's just come from my school and she's only been here a year and now she's got
things.
A solo. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not playing this down, because that is devastating for a young person. Seeing their friend, they've been working at this for 3 years, and now their friends walked in from their school, and in a year they've suddenly just got a massive solo in a show, and they're going, well, why? What's the point? What am I not doing?
What about me?
What about me? Yeah. It's hard. You, as parents, you have to allow them to be upset.
Okay.
So first of all, don't dismiss their feelings. It's okay that they're upset, and it's okay to be upset. But I think the thing that we always try to teach is understanding one's journey, understanding that for different people, things come at different times in their life.
Right.
And it's hard for a young person to understand, but the more that you say that to them, the more that you encourage them. So, yes, I hear you, that's devastating that Millie got that solo and you didn't. And I completely hear you and understand why that would upset you.
Right.
But you know what? You are working hard at what you are doing. Then you need to give them affirmation. You are working hard at what you are doing. You are brilliant at what you do. Do you still love what you do? Do you enjoy going to class? Let them come back with the positives. Yes, I love it. I love what I do. What else does it bring to your life? What else? How does it make you feel when you sing? Well, why don't we concentrate on that? Let's concentrate on those aspects, because the big accolades, they may come, they may never come. But we need to be here because we are loving it, and we are loving the process, and we are loving being here. And if you want to know why you wasn't picked, then let's go speak to your teacher. Going back to what I was saying before, approaching a subject carefully. You know,
so this is a partnership with you and the parents.
Absolutely.
Because the parents can sometimes initially think, oh, she's got it out for my kid.
Completely.
Right?
Yes.
And can jump to that conclusion
Yeah.
and can say that to the child.
Yes.
And can you see that the next time she walks into class?
Absolutely. I can tell immediately, and I have discussed this with parents before, when I can tell immediately when they have just had news, let's say, for instance, that they didn't get a solo in Born to Perform, and I have then received the child in class the following weekend, and the child is withdrawn from class, not wanting to look me in the eye, that is damaging. That is damaging to the teacher-pupil relationship. That is damaging because you can't enter a conversation in that space. You can't enter when there's been that much negativity that's been put around it. It's difficult to break through that. Where if the subject is approached with positivity from the beginning, hear them out. I know you're upset. Let's chat to Gemma. Let's find out what the reasoning was behind it.
And you can, for the parents, you can, for some that don't want to be as involved, for them to encourage their kids, for them to speak to you.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that'll be the same with any teacher in any performing arts establishment. Again, if someone is teaching the arts, they are there because they are passionate about it. Well, they should be. Yeah, they are passionate about your kids. They love your kids like they're their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want the best for your kids the same way in which you do, actually. You know, I mean, I've had endless nights wide awake, you know, and you can vouch for that. Yeah. Endless nights wide awake worrying about someone, worrying about a child, because where are they at? They're just not doing well at the moment. They were so good 2 months ago and they've lost trajectory and I don't know what's going on. Like, we worry about your kids. And when we're faced with a situation like that, where they're brutally upset because they feel like it's unfair, they feel like they're working, they feel like they're not getting any further, if you allow the teacher to explain to them why, there will be a reason. But the reason could just be casting. The reason could just be, you just weren't right for this, darling.
Just going back to your one student, obviously,
Yeah.
Jessica, who was with us for the longest time, she only peaked at 18.
Yeah, she only peaked at 18.
In my opinion, she went through 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, where everyone else was getting the solos, everyone else was doing the main thing. How she stuck at it, just
because she loved it.
Yeah, testament to who she is and her passion.
Absolutely, and it
happened.
And it happened. Yeah, absolutely. She wasn't getting solos. She wasn't getting sent for auditions. She wasn't for many, many years, until 17, 18 was when everything started to come together for her. And I always said to you, just watch Jessica, watch her.
I know, you've been saying it from the beginning, and but I'm just going to say this on your behalf. You've got a good instinct for knowing whether someone should stick at it or whether someone shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, and you're verbal with that.
Yeah,
as
I
well.
am.
You know, you've seen a potential in kids where I've said, nah, I don't see it. And yeah, sure as Bob, 4 years later, you show me something and it blows my mind.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it back then.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a journey of such an unknown for the parents and for the students, because they're sitting there 9 years old, wondering why their friends are getting solos, not knowing what it's going to feel like when they have their moment at 16.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. And I think as well, what makes it even more difficult now is the instant gratification side of things, you know, which I know Brian Shamour and I talk about quite often. But they're living in a world where everything is instant. Yeah. And this is the thing with the arts, is it is not instant. For some people it is. And that's what's tricky. Some people, they get on a reality TV show and boom. But what they don't see is all the work that has gone in before that.
Absolutely.
So they just see people suddenly just becoming successful without knowing what has gone on behind the scenes for the past 4 years leading up to that moment. And also as well, people develop at different times. You know,
we've seen people peak at 13.
Yeah. And do this and have an amazing stint for about 2 years of working professionally at 13. But then when they get to 16, 17, it starts leveling off. That also happens. Yeah. And that's why it's important as well, I think, when training children for a professional career. And in South Africa, I think we're quite lucky in that there isn't a massive kids industry. I think we're lucky. I know that there's a lot of people that wish there was. Right. But I have seen the damage that kids going into working professionally, full on, from the age of 8, 9, 10, 11, does for them mentally, emotionally. They don't have time to be a kid. They're dealing with things that they shouldn't be dealing with at that age. They lose their passion because it's a job. It becomes a job too soon, and it shouldn't be. So I feel quite blessed that we're in a country where there is an amazing show that comes up every now and again that they can just hop into, that there is the quick TV stint or the quick presenting stint, or as an establishment we can create those amazing opportunities for them as and when we feel like it's needed. You know, where we're feeling like, oh, we need something to happen here. They're getting a bit bored, a bit itchy, you know.
But to be in it all the time, and
to be in it all the time is completely different.
It takes a toll on their human spirit.
Absolutely. And as again, just repeating, they have to learn very quickly to deal with things that they maybe shouldn't. That takes maturity and years to learn how to deal with. Rejection is not something, as much as what I say to you and say to the parents, this is a way that you can help them. They're not just going to go, oh, I get it, I've been rejected, I feel fine, because I've been taught how to deal with it. You know, they're going to get rejected 5, 6, 7, 8 times before they actually start to know what their process is.
And I think it's difficult for parents, man, because I know I've got certain friends, someone cries in front of them, they don't know what to do.
Yes.
They just don't know what to do. That's just not their scene, you know.
Yeah.
Certain people have more of an aptitude for it, you know, dealing with someone emotionally. But sometimes you just that parent that just doesn't want to see your kid cry and upset.
Yeah.
For those people, how do they get guidance? Because this is nowhere to be found. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Then you need to be brave enough to call your teachers.
Right.
Yeah, because as I said, if they are in a good performing arts establishment, the teachers will take the time. It might not be that moment, like if you send them a message at 8 o'clock at night expecting them to respond straight away. It may not be straight away. But they will get back to you and they will book a meeting with you and the child, or just the child. And they, because they've had the experience with this time and time and time again, they will be able to assist your child in mending that and helping them through it, and assisting you with that as well.
See, parents, you thought you were just sending your kids for an extra mural, but now they have to be a willing participant in their kids' development in this aspect of their lives.
Yeah.
Can I go to the benefits of being a musical theatre performer in South Africa that people may not sometimes think are benefits compared to being in the UK? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, so it's so interesting because again,
everyone wants to be
on Broadway, or I want to be in the West End.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's the thing. And it doesn't matter sometimes how much I verbalise this to some of my students. You're never going to change their minds with what they want to do and where they want to go. So first of all, many people, I'm going to start with studying overseas in comparison to studying in SA. And then I'm going to move to wanting to be on the West End or Broadway.
Right.
Okay. So studying overseas, first of all, I need to say that unless you have the money and the finances and your parents have the money and the finances to send you because it is so expensive, you shouldn't consider it. Because the amount of debt, putting your parents into that amount of debt for that reason, I think is really silly. And I think that there are enough really fabulous establishments in South Africa now, especially with Lambton and Waterfront and Oakfields and Stageworx and all the other one. You are going to find somewhere where you fit that is going to give you what you need. And sometimes we always look at that golden egg and we feel like there's only one choice. And for us, it could be that one choice is, let's say Mount View or Guildford or Arts Ed, and that's our dream. I also had to face the possibility, well, the reality that I couldn't study at one of those major London colleges because my mum simply didn't have the funds to be able to send me. And I had to study at a college in Essex that I was very blessed to get a scholarship for. It was the only way that I could study. And I still had a very amazing career and a fabulous life, you know, and it was hard at the time, you know. I couldn't even consider going because we couldn't afford it. So always look at all of your options, and don't just try to get your mind fixed on that is the one place, especially if you know that it's a financial issue that you can't go. Look at what all of your options are. If you do want to study overseas and you do have the money, don't lay all your eggs into one basket because it is so competitive and the likelihood is you're not going to get in. So go over, explore, go audition for 11, 12, 13 different establishments so that you have a choice and you have other choices. So that's the first thing. I think everyone is itching to maybe leave South Africa without opening their eyes and seeing what they have on their doorstep. What is the reason for you wanting to go over? Is it just because you want to be seen to have been in the West End? Or is it because the West End is ultimately bricks and mortar, right? It's just theatres. Because the people that are working in those shows take those shows wherever you go. Yeah?
So in South Africa, what you're saying is that the international creatives are here.
Absolutely.
Working with the South African cast.
Working with the South African cast.
An opportunity that sometimes even the people in the West End
don't get. No.
Okay.
We also get to do many different shows. So if you get a contract for the West End or Broadway, I'm assuming as well, I don't know so much about Broadway, but in the West End, you're going to be in a year and a half contract, which is great because then you're in work for a year and a half, you know, so that's fab. But over here, our runs are a lot shorter. Or we're taken on tour. So you get to see the world, you know, and there's so many South African productions that are now going on tour that are touring.
Yeah.
You know, so...
Brilliant opportunity.
Amazing opportunity. And I think that's the other thing that people don't realise is that what are you striving for? If you're just striving to be in the theatre and you don't care about who you're working with, then I kind of think, well, maybe you're not as invested in the art form that you're studying as what you should be, because it should be about growing as a performer and wanting to work with the geniuses behind these shows, right? That's the aim. You should be wanting to work with the best musical directors in the industry, which, by the way, we have many of them in South Africa. Yeah. You know, you should be wanting to work with the most amazing directors that are going to help you grow as a performer. You should be wanting to work with amazing performers. We have that all here. And the ones that are overseas come here and work here with our performers.
Wow. You
know, and because the pool is so much smaller here, the likelihood of you working with those particular people is a lot higher.
And that's what you're saying as well, you know, like just going to the musical directors, people that are in our close circle of influences, obviously Brian Schimmel, Rowan Backer, the people that have worked on all these international shows and have worked closely with the international musical directors from many shows.
Yeah.
You can't even name them on your fingers. They've worked with them closely. And what kind of experience does that bring to someone like Brian and Rowan when they're teaching a student now? They don't just have their experience.
It's
their
incredible.
Their expertise is blown out of the water.
Absolutely.
The people that we have that are teaching here as well are... We're very lucky.
Very lucky.
Very lucky. The people are almost the best of the best.
Absolutely. And I do think that I think there's a general sense all round sometimes with South Africa that the grass is greener somewhere else, and
everyone wants to move out of SA.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, we're not going to get into the politics or any of that behind it, but I'm from the UK. I lived there for most of my life. And I wouldn't consider moving back there with what we have here in SA. In the industry, I had my happiest years performing in the musical theatre industry here. I worked with people that I probably never would have got the chance to work with had I considered staying in the UK and continuing my career there. I would never have got to work with some of the people that I've worked with in this country, and then on to building a performing arts school. And again, those kind of opportunities, had I remained in the UK, I don't know if they would have been feasible. Starting something new in South Africa is a possibility. Growing something from the ground up is much more viable here than what it is in the UK, just because of how expensive things are over there and being able to start things, So yeah, I think my life would have been very different and maybe not for the better had I stayed there. And that's really hard for South Africans to understand sometimes, and when I get the students coming in going, I want to go study overseas, I want to go be on the West End, I want to, it's difficult. I have to listen to them and their reasoning. And sometimes my response is different from student to student according to where they want to be and what they want to be doing. And, but sometimes I do wish I could just shake them and open up their eyes to what they've got right on the doorstep.
You take for granted what's right in front of you.
Absolutely,
always,
yeah.
So Gemma, you are currently writing a book.
I am.
And I know it's got a lot to do with all the ideas that we throw around on a daily basis in the evenings after all your classes, analysing the kids, analysing the parents, analysing their progress.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I'm stuck on the last chapter at the moment, but then it's done. Once I've done that. It's called Understanding Your Creative Child. And it comes from the fact that I had a mom that had no knowledge of the arts whatsoever. None. And she was stuck with this kid that was just creative and wanted to sing and dance and act all the time, and she had no idea what to do with me. And none of my family members were in the arts, and I was like the black sheep. I was the different one in our family, and I remember growing up how that felt, and the pressures, I think, of the expectation of having to achieve something, because I was moving in a different trajectory from what some other members of my family were.
You put that on yourself?
Yeah, I did, for many, many years. And also seeing my mum try so hard to give me the right advice, but feeling like I wasn't necessarily getting the advice that I needed, from no fault of hers, because she had no experience in this scene at all, So... And so that's where the idea for the book came from, because it was like, if my mum had a book that said, in this situation, try do this. Oh, you want to go study? These are different angles that she can take and where she can go. Auditioning early? This is what to expect. And those pointers. Child crying in your living room because they didn't get a solo. How do you deal with that? So like all of those things, as well as, so that was the one angle of the book, is all the questions that I get asked on a daily basis from parents that don't know. Yeah. And also all the things that really frustrate me with parents. I'm going to say it blatantly, that really, really keep me awake at night because I'm so angry with the way that they've dealt with the situation. Knowing, and it comes from a place of caring about their child, of this is damaging them, this is damaging their way forward in their career if they keep doing this, you know. So it's twofold, it's that, but it is mainly a training manual for parents to navigate their way through arts education. It's also there to open up the eyes to parents of how important the arts is, for them to see that even if you don't value a career in the arts for your child, because I've had many parents like that as well, that feel like it's a waste of time, that they should go study something important.
Yes.
And their kid is just so passionate about it and it's all they want to do with their lives. And sometimes I just feel if you just knew what good, and maybe not financially, it may be a bad decision, but what other good aspects it brings to your life, then maybe you might change your mind slightly, you know. So it's that there's a whole chapter on what it does bring to kids' lives, and if they do follow a career, the difficulties, the hardships, but also the amazing things that can happen. You know, we talk about kids that are extroverts, that are performers by heart and soul, and that love it, about the ego, and that as a parent you're going to have to control that, and you can either assist the ego or you can try squash the ego down slightly. So we talk about that, and we talk about so in the book it's a training manual for parents. There's also a quiz in there, which I think some of our parents are going to find quite hilarious, the ones that are in Stageworx already. So there's a quiz where I've given different situations of situation A has happened. So let's just say your child's come home and she didn't get cast in the school play. How do you react? And she's very upset. How do you react? A, B, C, or D? And then in those different scenarios, we've categorized it into parenting styles, and how those parenting styles either assist with arts development or don't, or can hinder their development. And I give scenarios that actually happened, like stories of, I've not given any names, but scenarios that have actually happened, and conversations that I've had, and how if things were approached differently, it could have ended differently. Right. So it's been quite a journey for me writing it, because I think it's also made me realise, which I think we all need reminding of sometimes, that what we are doing as arts teachers is important. I'm going to come back to that again. And that's calling out to all the arts teachers out there, because sometimes I know we all just feel like running away, you know, and just packing our bags and going, oh, there's got to be an easier way than this. But how important our jobs actually are, by writing it all down, and all the years of the hurt sometimes as well, when a situation hasn't ended well, and you have to analyse that and go, why didn't that end well? What could I have done better as a teacher and a mentor for that to have ended better, you know? And it was quite amazing to write it all down and seeing it all unfold. So yeah, I'm on the last chapter, and then after that we'll be ready to go with it. We're going to send it out first as an audiobook, for parents to just have a listen to. Yeah, so keep your eyes peeled for that one.
Awesome.